Welcome to Plaid for Women TV, your go-to resource for the business of life. Whether the CEO of your home or your own business, women struggle with the same challenges. At Plaid TV, we discuss real-life issues affecting real women and offer solutions to help you achieve your goals, get connected, and be heard. Together, we will change the world. Let's do this. No mean girls allowed.
Hey, welcome everybody to Plaid TV. I'm Siobhan Palmer. In this video, we're talking about a very difficult but important topic, domestic violence. My guest is Michelle Morgan. She's the director of the nation's leading family justice center in Fort Worth, Texas, One Safe Place. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you.
Before we talk about this topic, I'd be very interested. Why don't you share with our audience how you got involved with this line of work?
Many years ago, about 15 years ago, matter of fact, began working as a victim advocate in law enforcement for a law enforcement agency, Fort Worth Police Department, and began my work there, worked with many of crime victims, anything from homicide, sexual assaults, robberies, domestic violence, just any type of
the gamut,
offense that you can imagine against a person. And while I was there, one of the most interesting things that we dealt with was domestic violence. For me, it was such a challenge. Mm-hmm. There was no cookie cutter response when you're a victim advocate trying to assist people that have been in domestic violence situations. While I was there at the police department is when we began to look at this family justice center model, and we actually began to plan what is now One Safe Place while I was there.
Okay, so let's talk about the alarming statistics relative to domestic violence in the United States. Give us some numbers.
On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, that equates to more than 10 million women and men that are experiencing domestic violence.
That's unbelievable. Okay. I understand years ago it used to be 1 in 4. Are the statistics still that way now in terms of the victims relative to women?
The statistics have changed. Now it's 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime.
1 in 3?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk about, is there a specific demographic? Who are the victims of domestic violence in terms of numbers?
Domestic violence is the one statistic that does not discriminate against anyone, any race, ethnicity, religious preference, poverty. It doesn't.
Income level, it's across the board.
It doesn't matter. It's across the board. It doesn't discriminate.
Unbelievable. What are the major factors that you would say play into this increase in domestic violence in one of the richest countries in the world? Again, like you said, income has nothing to do with it. What are some of the major factors you're seeing as a professional?
The one major factor that plays in domestic violence is power and control over another individual. Most people have this general assumption that it's only physical violence. When there's physical violence, it's really, really bad. Well, I can tell you, based off of the clients that are walking through our door, that it can be really, really bad without physical violence being a factor. But when you look at it, it is about power and control over another individual.
Plain and simple. And I think that's such a strong point you bring up, because I think verbal abuse, and sometimes it can start in a very subtle manner, but then escalate and then really plays with somebody's psyche. So it's both physical and or verbal.
Well, and it can be physical, there can be verbal, there can be emotional, there can be financial abuse, there can be spiritual abuse, there can be pet abuse. There's so many different things, but what all of those different levels of violence and abuse have is the same characteristic, which is power and control over another human being.
That's the common thread among all of them.
Correct.
Oh my goodness. Would you say there are more populations that are more vulnerable to domestic violence?
It does vary as far as the populations. I would definitely say that there are some situations where the lethality, so our danger level, is an increased risk in some situations. And so I can go over a couple of those characteristics of what we would call our high risk factors in dealing with domestic violence. Some of those risk factors include, is there violence while a victim is pregnant? So physical violence while someone is pregnant. Is there drug and alcohol that's being used in that relationship? Is there strangulation or choking is what many people refer to? Strangulation is a huge red indicator that a homicide can occur. Multiple women are strangled multiple times, and it takes just a couple of seconds for that to end their life. There are things, if it is an extremely emotional or possessive relationship, that as well plays into a high-risk indicator.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. Can domestic violence be passed down from generation to generation? Is that something you see in your work?
We don't call it passed down from generation to generation because that would imply that it's genetics.
Genetic, which it's not.
It could be. There is some actual research that is being conducted that's, pretty interesting, that there can be some DNA makeup of changes because of the trauma that has occurred. But that is all really cutting edge of what's coming. So in the past, people don't really say generation to generation. What they say is that it's the cycle. That's where everyone hears break the cycle of violence. Like, what does that mean? Well, basically what that means is it's a learned behavior. It happened to my parents. I saw it as a child, or my father did this. And so we call it a learned behavior. And so for some people, it's normal. So when you talk about passed to generation, that's where that cycle is occurring because they were in a household that was very violent, and that's their normal behavior. And so when they get into relationships, that's the only thing that they know how to do.
They assume that's their normal, so they assume it's acceptable.
Yes.
Let's talk about the devastation of domestic violence, particularly as it relates to children.
Children witnessing domestic violence is a huge epidemic because that's where your cycle and your generational change is occurring. And so there's so much research right now that's impacting on addressing the children that are in the homes that are witnessing this level of abuse. Statistics are telling us that when children are witnessing violence, that it can have devastating effects on them. Not only are they at 50% at risk to either become victims themselves or also abusers themselves. It can impact behavioral changes for children. It can impact mental health issues and long-term health issues as well. And when domestic violence is occurring in the home where children are witnessing it, they're much more likely to also be at the hands of suffering child abuse as well.
Yeah. Michelle, great information on the statistics. I really appreciate it so much. People want to get information on One Safe Place. Tell us what we need to do.
If someone is in imminent danger, call 911, always. If someone needs services from One Safe Place, they're more than welcome to call us at 817-916-4323, or please go to our website, which is onesafeplace.org.
Terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Siobhan Palmer with Plaid TV. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Plaid TV. See you next time.